What is up, everybody? This is Marshall Lee of DonkeyJawProjects.com. Welcome to the Early Bird Artcast. We get in really early, we get some comic work done, and we talk about a topic. And thank you for joining. Today we're going to be talking about building up to your big project. And when I say big, I mean like basically the project you want to do. It doesn't necessarily have to be a huge project, but if you have something you've had a vision to do for a while, but you haven't, maybe you feel like maybe you haven't gotten the skills yet or something, this is kind of what we're talking about. So speaking about we talking about it, today I have Theresa Del Pilar on here. How you doing?
Hello, I'm doing all right. How are you?
Doing well. It's been a while actually since we've had
I
you.
know. Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
I think
It's been
we've
crazy busy with the Kickstarter, and just it's hard to get people to chat for a while. It's just busy.
yeah, it's been busy. I mean, I was on a roll for a while and you regularly, and then I kind of stopped. So I think that kind of halted a lot of people coming on who were coming on before. And then I think when I started back up, you were really busy. So that's all right. We always have fun here. And I'm glad to have you back.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Glad to be back.
Before we get going, where can people find you?
Well, they can find me here on YouTube. Actually, I think I finally can change my name, and I'm gonna be Teresa del Pilar in YouTube as well. But probably in the link in your description, you can find my YouTube channel, and I'm also on Instagram. It is Teresa underscore DEL underscore Pilar, as in a pillar. Teresa del Pilar.
Awesome. Sweet. And I definitely recommend you guys go check her stuff out. First of all, she's not only does she make really cool art and comics, but she has a lot of great advice on YouTube as well. So yeah, definitely some good stuff. Let's see. So like I said, today I wanted to talk about kind of building up to a project, and I'm also trying to get like set up with my comic here so I can get some work done on it. But yeah, the thing is I it's kind of interesting, like the evolution, at least for me, how things have gone. Like I think when I was younger, I always like had these big like ideas of like, oh, I'm gonna make like this awesome comics. Like I would read the comics I was into, and I'd be like, oh man, I want to do something like Todd McFarlane or whatever. This is like when I first started, and I want to make like this crazy cool like superhero, and it's gonna be big, and there's like all these big storylines, and starting to build this big world, and I didn't realize a lot of things at that point. I didn't even think of like trying to make my own comic. Like on a smaller level, I just kind of thought, well, I'm gonna, try. I want it to be like what I read or whatever. Like I want it to be that quality as far as like the paper and stuff. So I just felt like I was gonna work on a process and hopefully like join some kind of company or whatever. And I wish at that time I really like knew about like mini comics and stuff, because when I did it, that's when I was like, oh wow, like I can do that. Like, so if a lot of people might, well, you may or may not have noticed, but I actually my subscribers on YouTube have been growing at a pretty good rate, and I just got to 1,500 subscribers, which is really cool.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And it wasn't that long ago that I was celebrating getting to 1,000. It took forever to get to 1,000, and it took 5 months to get 500 more, which is crazy. Because I've been doing this since almost YouTube started. So, it's just crazy how things work out. But, you know, I didn't really know, like, oh, so the point I said about that is that the number one video that has gotten me to this point is there's a video called how to, I think it's starting your first comic or something to that extent, and it's just been blowing up for me. It's a huge video, and I've been getting a lot of subscribers. So if you're new here, thank you so much. I do, these live streams, and I do vlogs. It's like my main kind of content. But I also have done like tutorials and other things. So there's going to be some more cool things coming up the line. Yeah, I mean, it's just really cool. So that video, starting your comic, it's kind of, I'm actually surprised it blew up, because it's almost like it's a little bit a very different take on that topic, which is a popular topic in this kind of sphere. But I went with the idea of, well, start your first comic by start doing mini comics. Start doing smaller projects, because it's hard to like just sit there and be like you might not necessarily have the skills to do the big project that you really are dreaming of doing, and also a bigger project is just so overwhelming. So it's like you might start and then you might never finish, and that'll be so discouraging that it might make you not want to make comics anymore. And there's just something awesome to like trying to just build up skills, like maybe by doing small anthologies or mini comics, or I don't know. That's what's helped me, at least. What do you
Yeah.
think, Theresa? Did you have like a big comic idea in mind when you first thought about doing comics, or?
Uh, you know what? I didn't. I must be like the only person in this universe that didn't have like a big idea. My first experiments with comics were with scenes, and it was an scene online. That basically it was every 2 weeks you had a topic, and you had to make a comic in 15 days about that topic. So normally it was like 1 or 2 pages, and it was more like a joke or something. And that's how I got started. And the big, I don't know, my ideas are not very big because I never read superhero comics. So for me, comics were always like the newspaper funnies and a one page thing, sort of thing.
Interesting. So it's kind of interesting though too, because you I happen to know that you're working on a comic right now, and
Yes.
do you find that comic is getting bigger than you expected, or do you find that it's right around the range that you kind of intended so far? Or
Uh, which one do you mean? My secret project or graduation nightmares?
the well, I guess you could talk about both, but I was thinking about your secret project.
Okay. So, generally speaking, I think, and I think this is probably true for every project you do, it will be slightly bigger than you anticipated. But I am very cautious and I try to rein it in. So, for example, Jan, he was giving me feedback on the script for my secret project, and he was like, "Oh, why don't you think about this or that?" And it's like, stop it now. No, this is supposed to be 200 pages. I cannot include any of this, because you can always come up with really cool ideas, but I try to keep it to the point. Like, I know what I'm trying to do, I know what I'm trying to say, and if I put all that cool stuff that Jan was saying, even though it was really cool, I would have got lost a little bit, I think.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's weird. It's interesting though that you didn't get caught up in that, and I do find that you tend to have like a pretty reasonable approach to things a lot of times. So yeah, I don't know, and it's interesting like that you kind of started off doing it the way you did it, and I don't know if it necessarily is a superhero comic thing. It might be. I don't know. I guess those tales tend to be kind of epic. Um, but I don't know. For me, at least, it's even when I have like a small idea, it always turns into like, oh, this is gonna turn it, like it starts off as a mini comic, and then it's like, oh, well, maybe it could be like a mini series, few, 1 or 2 issues or 3 issues, and then I'm like, wait a minute, maybe this could be like a series of graphic novels. Like it just gets bigger and bigger. Like I have so many
Yeah.
ideas, and it's like it's hard to rein it in. But I guess I've learned to, because all I've done now is small projects so far, and now I'm kind of at the point where it's like I've done all these small projects, um, and I'm ready to finally do like the proper, like, this is an actual comic book type of thing. Like, I've never quite done that yet. Like, the closest I've done is these anthologies now, which is really cool, but I want to like actually have an actual issue that looks like something you would pick up at a comic shop, you know, in my hand. So
Yeah.
I feel like I'm kind of ready to do that. I don't know if my skills are quite to the point I want them to be, but I'm, you know, as soon as I get a script, you know, I'm jumping in, you know, because, you know, you got to start somewhere.
Yeah,
Hi there.
absolutely. Hello.
Sorry. Hello. Is this
Russ, what's
private,
up?
or
Comic
was
Book
it
Black
okay to jump in?
You can totally jump in, man. Thanks for
I,
coming,
I,
stopping
I've
by.
been, I've been sitting here thinking, when would it be polite to say hello? And I thought, if this is private, I really, I really ought to say something.
Yeah, man, that was so rude. Just interrupting a really private conversation live on YouTube.
That I invited you.
I didn't know if this was just like just between you two or what.
No,
But
no, not at
okay,
all.
all right, okay. Hello.
Hi, what's up? Yeah, no, I put the link out on purpose. Like, a lot of times
Okay.
only one person will jump in, and sometimes I feel like, you know, once everybody's like, oh, okay, well, that means that I don't want to like mess their thing up. But no, it's free. I want everybody who I've invited, everybody and anyone can pop
Okay.
in.
Cool. Cool.
So what's up, man?
Yeah. I just thought I'd drop in and listen to some wisdom from you guys. And
Well, you've got some experience yourself, and if anybody doesn't know, I mean, he's been on a lot lately. But this is Russ Leach from Comic Book BlackBelt YouTube channel. So I just want to put that there. The links
thank
for
you.
both of these two are in the description. So, what do you think about this topic, man?
What? How to improve?
Yeah, like building up to a like kind of your big project. Like, you know, it's easy to get kind of let things get out of hand, and maybe either try that big project too early before you've like built up the skills to even do like a mini comic or a small comic, or, you know, I don't know. What do you think? Do you need to build up, or should you just dive right in?
Yeah, I think if you're going to do something of any substantial size, then yes, you really need to have practiced first. You need to be happy with where you are. I mean, I can only talk from a perspective of working on books that I've been provided a script for or a page rate for, because I haven't actually gone all the way and done it all myself yet. But certainly, in order to feel comfortable to do those books, I had to be at a certain level where I felt my output was going to be professional enough, I suppose. But I suppose it's slightly different when you're coming at it from your own perspective, when you've got like you're kind of built up all this creative steam, and you want to let it out. So I think some of it depends on the size of the project. Certainly, smaller projects should be a way of defining yourself and getting those skills that you need, and kind of building up to the bigger project. How's that?
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. Now, on like the flip side of the things, a lot of people like, it's easy for me to talk about jumping in before you're ready, because that's like how I approach life. Um, because you know, to me, it's like, yeah, let's do it. Let's start it. Let's start my big project right away. And I think that's good. It's a good way to go, but it's also sometimes detrimental, because you can get really discouraged when you're not able to do the thing that you set out to do. But there is that other side of like, well, you know, I'm preparing and preparing and preparing and just never ending preparing. And then, you know, you just never press the start button. You know, I'm too afraid to, you know, press start on, you know, maybe even I've heard a lot of people have hesitation, and this is not the same exact thing, but having hesitation for starting like a Patreon, or, you know, some kind of crowdfunding or whatever, or, you know, whatever it is, like it, a lot of times it's, if you're like hesitating to the point where it's stopping you, like, from making any progress for like a long period of time. Sometimes you just need to start,
Yeah, prevarication is the enemy of progress. That's the whole point. If you talk about it a lot and don't do it, you're not going to get anywhere. You're absolutely right. You have got to jump in and just do it at some point. And of course, us all being creatives and artists, we're always going to be our own worst critic and go, "Oh, I don't know that we're quite ready yet." Oh, is that right? But you're right. You have got to just, put your toe in the water and get on with it.
So, what would you say, Theresa? There's maybe some steps. I mean, I know I've mentioned like mini comics and stuff. Like, what would you say like has helped you to get to the point where you're ready to tackle a bigger project?
Well, I am a big fan of baby steps. I think you are a jumping in guy, and I think a lot of this is personality. I'm more of a baby step type person. Even when I go into a social situation, it takes me like a little while to actually interact with people because I'm observing, I'm seeing like how things are. So I'm just like that. That's my personality, and that's what I do. But I think it depends on the person. For me, it started with one-page comics, and I was really bad at it. And once I felt like my one-page comics were acceptable, not great, acceptable, I jumped into maybe a 5-page comic and maybe a 10-page comic. And then once that was done, it's just, I don't know, maybe this is a bit, I don't know, mystical or something, but I feel like all my life, whenever I was prepared, something came up and pushed me to the next level. It was never my choice. It was always something external. So maybe I did a 10-page comic and suddenly I got a message from someone that's like, oh, I have a 24-page comic. I'm going to pay you for it. You want to do it? And I was like, okay. So it's always been external forces pushing me to take the next step rather than myself. And I don't know if that's the correct way to go about it, but I think when you're ready for something, people or forces or whatever will push you to the next step, sort of thing.
That's a good point. I definitely believe in that. I mean, obviously I've talked about it before. I definitely believe there's, you know, like I believe in God and all that, and I do think that there is like some of that kind of stuff. But not everybody believes that, and I'm not saying that you're thinking that, but like I think even just naturally, it does kind of happen, and maybe it's because it's what we're looking for or whatever, or, however you kind of want to think of it. But it is so true. Like it seems like kind of sometimes the opportunities come that kind of push you towards stuff, and sometimes, I mean, that's kind of what a lot of stories are about, really. Like a lot of people really won't act, and I know I'm like this too with certain things. A lot of people won't act until they have to act, until they're forced to act. Like, I might not try to get, my car fixed or whatever, because this is like stuff I'm dealing with right now, until like it breaks down, even though I knew I could have looked into certain things. I mean, I don't think that's really the case for me at the moment, because my big thing was I just didn't have the money. That's why I didn't do certain things. But, you know, there's, some people get to a point like they're like, oh man, I hate my job. This is a very common thing you hear about. I hate my job. But I have this, hobby that I want to do, and it could be anything, you know, and I just love doing that, and I know I'm good at it. I wish I could do that instead, but I got to bring the money in, blah blah blah. And they might think of possibly trying to make it into a career, and then something happens, they get fired, or they have to move, or there's some kind of circumstance in their life that kind of makes them have to make a decision, and that's when they do, and they make the decision, and a lot of times they realize that when it comes time to sink or swim, they're able to find a way to swim.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the universe speaks to you personally. I think it provides when you work at something that's deeply personal to you. I think it does provide an answer for you. I think there's there's a little bit of luck definitely in comic strip publishing, but I would say from my own experience that I would have to say that I didn't feel helped, but things kind of they locked into place. You do make your own luck to a degree, and you need to be in it to win it, as it were. You need to go there and do it, otherwise it will not happen. It's like build it and they will come. It's a bit like that, but it definitely feels like certain things sort of snapped into place, and then sometimes you're able to sit back from reality and observe and kind of go, all right, okay, things are kind of happening around me and they seem to be working in the right direction, and then you got to go with the flow. So just my personal opinion.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I don't think it's something magical or anything. It's just that when you're putting yourself out there and your work is at that level, somebody at some point is bound to say, "Hey, wanna work with me?" Or "Hey, it's just the way things work. If you're out there and you're doing the work at that level, it'll happen eventually."
Yeah, that's definitely good.
Oh yeah, nothing magic. It's just the way the world works, or the way the universe works. Whatever it is, it definitely works.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's definitely, like, I know that, and that's kind of why I've been, because like that's why I've been like trying to do some of these illustrations. My focus is comics, but at the same time, I have some car issues that I'm trying to figure out, and other things too. Really, it'd be nice to like have some extra money flowing in, so it would help me to, deal with some of these needs better, that kind of hinder me from working on the things that I need to work on. So, one thing I noticed though is I don't really get any inquiries about illustration unless I'm putting illustration work out there, So, it's definitely very true. So that's why I've been trying to do these little illustrations, and I'm trying to make them like quick. I'm trying to find a way to do stuff that's kind of quick that could also serve somebody's need for an illustration. So because I'm making comics, I don't have time to be spending crazy hours on illustration work, if I'm really trying to be serious about this. So I've noticed it, like, for sure with my comics. Like, I'm so glad I like ran into the art and story guys, and Kevin was part of the art and story thing, and he started the mini comics dump truck. And that's when I made my first comic, my first like official comic. I mean, growing up, I made comics. Well, I didn't make comics so much, but I made like some strips here and there, and I made like just pages. Like I would always start a comic, and I'd be too excited to start the comic to actually like write an actual script. And really that followed me up until really almost now, like just recently. And so I would start a page not even having an idea for a story. I just wanted to draw a page of comics, and so I don't know, like, I'm curious, Russ, what were like your early stages? Because I know you, you kind of ended up doing, I think, coding and stuff, but you always wanted to make comics, correct? Did you have any of these early stages of trying to make comics when you were a kid?
Yeah, I remember the first comic that I was bought by my mum that I can remember properly is the first drawing that I can remember, and my mum still has it, and it was Stalker by DC, and I think it was Ditko. No, maybe not. I can't remember the artist. Somebody actually, a writer actually suggested to me that they thought my work was a little bit like that, and I'd never really connected the two until I went back and saw this picture that I'd drawn. But so I was copying out of comics, like I suppose most artists and most artists who want to draw comics do. They copy other comics of one sort or another. and I was doing that. I remember drawing probably a good 6 or 7 pages of the Micronaut comic strip, literally size for size. So I did it on an A4 sheet and copied it from the book when I was about 10, 11, I think it was something like that. Then I got into comics in a big way around that time. Marvel was my first love, really. And so, yeah, that kind of led me into desperately wanting to draw comics. And then my hopes were dashed at college when I was told I wouldn't be good enough to be an illustrator, which was quite a harsh thing to say to someone. But I suppose if that's what he thought, then, you know, he was right. I suppose it depended what sort of illustrator I was going to be as to whether he was correct or not. And then I went off into design land, and was in publishing and design, retail design, and leisure, the holiday industry for quite a while. And I did have a brush with Marvel in '95, where the new talent manager said yes to me and said I was good enough to draw for them, but nothing happened. And I think the chapter 11 happened at the time, and it was all a bit messy and snail mail and all the rest of it, and it never happened for me. And I think it was right, because I don't think I was mature enough at the time. I don't think my work was mature enough, and I don't think I was ready personally. But so yeah, so I at that moment in time I was also doing some underground comics, which were what we were doing in the UK, and I did something called Lionheart and Brit Force, which was kind of like an X-Men kind of rip-off. And I did a few of those. I think I might have gone into one of the magazines as well. And so I was quite into it. But what always drove me was I wanted to be in the bullpen in Marvel. That was what I wanted to do. And in recent years, I've realised, obviously, that was never really a real thing in the first place. We were always freelancers. So my journey has been one of trying to make it my profession, and banging my head up against a wall several times, rather than from a sort of an underground movement where you make comics because, you know, it's something that's part of you. It's a passion thing. I am passionate about comics, but it's always been integral to me wanting it to be a profession, rather than being passionate about the actual act of publishing your own books. And it's only in recent years that I've come to appreciate that side of it, and that's where I'm going now, after being able to get into the industry 10 years ago. Now it's been 10 years, and having those experiences, I now understand and appreciate, and am passionate about putting my own book out there and having my own characters. So yeah, it's been a bit of a journey, actually.
Yeah.
Now, Theresa, I think you've pretty much, well, I guess I can't speak for you with that, but like, 'cause I know that you are seeking like, you know, professional work as well at times, but it seems like you've always been doing, you know, personal projects, you know, the whole time, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Well, like my experience of comics, I think, is very different to what Russ is talking about, because I didn't grow up reading comics. So for me, it was never like a childhood dream that, oh, I want to be part of this cool group, because I never perceived it to be something cool. So for me, it was just a job people did, because I came into contact with it when I was 19, and I was like, oh, so this is what some people do for a job. So I've always had my I don't know, it's just difficult to explain, because I've never had a particular objective, like I want to work for Marvel or I want to work for Suasia or whatever. I'm aware of the industry, but I just want to find a place where I personally fit in, so I can do the work I like. That's more my angle.
Now, you first got attracted probably to comics through, I know you've talked about like anime and manga, correct? Or?
I used to read Dragon Ball, yeah.
Okay,
Only
cool.
because the show was on television and the manga was like a week earlier. so you could get spoilers. And I was like, yes, tell me what happens.
It's funny. Cool. So, what do you guys? I mean, it's interesting because we all kind of come from a very different sort of uh, perspective, I guess. And do you guys have any advice for people who like are kind of more in the beginning stages? Have maybe they want to work on their own personal comic? Like, what do you think would be a good way to kind of approach, a big project that they're thinking about,
Well, it depends exactly what the big project is. I suppose, like, my only advice would be to understand the systems in place before they set their eyes on anything. Because if your aim is to create your own, I don't know, superhero universe and pitch it to Marvel, that is not going to happen, because that's not how Marvel works. So I would say before trying, I don't know, like get information first of the industries that you could possibly fit in before you try and build something huge for someone that would never buy it. That would be my first advice.
Yeah, I think
what
that's
about
pretty sound.
Yeah,
That's very sound advice. It's do your homework, definitely. Work out where you want to be. There are people out there right now that have been producing Kickstarter and Indiegogo comics and are doing well out of them, and have been doing so for quite a while. I think it's examining your market and looking at where you want to be. If you just want to draw pages for Marvel, then or DC or a mainstream comic book publisher, then you're from an artist's perspective. Obviously, I'm not talking from a writer's perspective. Although some of the elements would be the same, some of the principles. You just got to practice and practice and practice and practice, and make sure your work is of a standard that would sit within the other professionals that are already working within that industry and getting paid page rates. And then on top of that, you got to be lucky, because luck really does. Networking, going to lots of got lots of conventions, and the right conventions, not just lots of conventions, but the right ones, to meet the right people, to get your work in front of people. And then even then, Marvel say, don't come looking for us, we'll come looking for you. It's almost like you seem to have to self-publish these days to get any kind of to be noticed in any way. You can't just show your work in the way that you used to. I'm sure there are still people that do that turn up and their work is so spectacular that whoever's looking at it from Marvel or DC will go, oh wow, yeah, and call them back and give them a job. But it's very, very rare.
Yeah.
That's
you've got to expect a long run of being rejected and being out there. Whereas the upside of publishing yourself is that obviously it's you. I would always suggest that you try and get yourself an editor, or at least someone to look over your work. Don't be insular. To try and get that work out to other people before you publish it.
Yeah. So it's interesting. You would suggest self-publishing as like a good way to start, even if you want to do work for other companies, which I think is somewhat of a new thing. Like that is common stuff that you hear from people. I mean, it always was a little bit that, but I've heard that for the last maybe, I don't know, 7 or so years. I've heard that as actually a common thing. Don't wait, for a company to snatch you up. Actually self-publish, like
Yes.
to start off.
I think
Yeah,
there was. Well, sorry. Go on.
No, you go.
It's just a quick comment. There's a podcast I listen to, which is called Droid and Then Tell Everybody. And it's this cartoonist called Dan Berry, and he likens the mentality of I'm going to do awesome things, and they'll come and fetch me. As when he was a child, he used to do wheelies in his front porch in the middle of nowhere in England, hoping that the Olympic team or someone would show up and say, "Oh, that kid can really do a wheelie. Come with us." Well, and I think that's the mentality that I had coming in. And when he called out that attitude, I was like, "Shit, that's exactly me. I'm gonna do awesome work, and they'll come for me." I was like, "No, it's never gonna happen. You need to understand the industry. You need to understand the gateways to get into those industries, the gatekeepers to get into those industries, and try to cater to them so that they will let you in."
Yeah,
absolutely. That's we all suffer from that, where you think, oh yeah, okay, I'll do my best work and show it about, and somebody's bound to pick me up. And you're absolutely right, it doesn't work like that. You have to make a much bigger splash than that for them to come after you. Mostly money. You have to show that you can generate cash. If people are interested in you and they want to buy your work, then somebody will want to publish you. And that's certainly the way that the larger publishers work. And you're right, you've got to go out there and grab it. You can't just sit around and expect people to come to you. And I think especially since I mean, comics have had a lot of problems in the last 30 years. Everyone, I've been very vocal about this. My personal view is, as soon as they were removed from ordinary shops and went into comic shops, and this is nothing against comic shops because I love comic shops, but it took it away from the general public. It took it away from putting those comics under kids' noses on newsstands, and that was where the problem started. Personally, that's my personal view. But since then, people like Marvel and what have you don't have submission policies, especially since the internet, because everyone and their brother will send them a stick figure and say, "Look, this is brilliant." It's just the way it is. And of course, because they've withdrawn, they now say, "Well, impress us." And the best way to impress people is to get out there and publish. It's really the only way properly. You can have a DeviantArt thing. You can have your online portfolio. You can. I've got my work spread across the internet, and it gets seen by the people that you know, and maybe you might even generate some people who really like your work. Dare I say the word fan? That might think, oh yeah, I really want to see more of your work, but. The people that are commissioning artists to draw regularly on pages won't be looking at your work on the internet, probably. You'd be lucky, again, like with what I was saying about the convention, you'd be very, very lucky to randomly get seen by someone who's a commissioning editor who's looking to pick up artists. So, yeah, absolutely right. Get out there, publish, and then you will be seen, because you'll be in the market, as it were. So you'll be a competitor, albeit very, very small. You're still a competitor. And
Yeah,
that's what they do. They buy it up. They come along with their baseball bats and they buy you out.
Yeah, and to take it a little bit away from the industry element of it, because it's really like, I don't know, a really like cutthroat business money type thing. I think this is the best part of it all. I don't know, maybe it's because I'm optimistic, but I think it's great because at the moment we're publishing our own stuff and we're completely free. We're making friends, and that is the first step. And personally, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's the best part. Like once we get into the industry, we'll have responsibility and we'll have editors telling us what to do and whatever. And right now, we are making friends. We're getting books out with our friends. We have absolute freedom. So I would say do that, enjoy it. And when they come for you, you'll go, oof, well, here we go. And, next step. Well, and if it doesn't, then at least you will have had fun, right?
Yeah, exactly. I remember doing a book for Harry Marcos over at Marcosia, and he took me to one side and said, "Russ," he said, I think you could go quite a long way. He was very complimentary about my work. But he said, be careful, he said, because they will come for you at some point. If you do well, any of the artists that have worked with him, if they do well, the bigger companies will come for you at some point. He says, they'll chew you up and they'll spit you out. He said, don't think that's it. If suddenly Marvel turn up and go, we've seen some of your work and we'd like you to work on a miniseries or do this or the other, you'll be it's unlikely that you will be a John Buscema or a Jack Kirby or any of these people. You won't last forever. They'll chew you up, they'll spit you out. He said, so make sure you have your own intellectual property. Do some stuff of your own, which was why I did some work with Mark Osier. So
yeah, I mean, and
definitely
that's
right.
the thing too is when you work on your own projects, it gives you, especially if you're able to be successful at it, that gives you possible leverage. You can maybe now say, well, I don't actually need to work for one of these companies, so
No.
unless it's the right circumstance, I'm not going to, and you can kind of dictate. Like, it's interesting. Like, I always admire the people who, like, I've been watching Cartoonist Kayfabe channel a lot, with Ed Piskor and what's the other guy? I can't remember his name. Anyways, Ed Piskor is a good example, though. Like, he did his own kind of stuff. I think he was working with like Robert Crumb at one point or something, and he kind of made his mark with his hip hop family tree comic, and he has his own style. It's kind of an underground type of style. Well, Marvel, he ended up, I can't remember if he approached Marvel or if they approached him, but he had success with hip hop family. This is my style. This is the kind of like I make, and now he's over at Marvel making an X-Men book, like the way he wants to do it, and he has complete control, almost complete control, and it's like that's the way to do it. Like I've seen other people do that too, where they kind of establish themselves as an indie creator, and now the companies are actually seeking you for what you do instead of seeking you to be another cog in the wheel,
Yeah, exactly. That's the way to do it. Yeah. And you're right. It's this is the environment we're in right at the moment, where you get to meet people and converse and swap ideas and produce the books that you want to produce. It is, I would say, it is far more rewarding than paid for work. I enjoyed the paid for work that I've done, and I continue to do so. But there's something quite special about producing your own work that you've generated, that you have control over, and that you share with the people you want to share it with. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has definitely been an interesting discussion, and to be honest, it went a little bit differently than I expected. We're talking more about actual, industry type of gigs, which is totally cool. So that's why it's always fun to have people on, because you get the different perspectives and you get, topics to go in different interesting areas. So I just wanted to say I have been watching the chat. There wasn't any like specific questions, just some commentary and stuff. So thank you, everybody. K2K, Epic Art, James, Ronnie's in there, Acid Lace. You guys are all awesome. Thank you, Devante. Sushi Wasabi? What? But yeah, so thank you guys for hanging out. And, we'll be on again at some point. So I appreciate everybody watching on the replay. And thank you guys, Russ and Theresa, for coming on. What's real quick before we leave, Theresa, where can people find you again?
Here on YouTube, Teresa del Pilar, like the same as my name, and on Instagram, Teresa_DEL_Pilar. You can find me there as well.
Cool. And Russ, what about you? Where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube. I'm Comic Book Black Belt, or you can look me up on Twitter under my name, Russ Leach, or Comic Book Black Belt, Facebook, all the usual haunts. And I have my own website, russleach.com. So, awesome. Just drop a comment, say hi, subscribe.
Awesome. And the links, again, are down below. And Chris, Chris Isaacson just dropped in finally. But hey, sorry you got here late, but thanks for stopping in, man. Chris is an awesome artist as well. And you guys know where you can find me, Marshall Lee _DJP on Instagram and Twitter, and donkeyjawprojects.com. And that's about it, guys. Thank you so much for coming on, and thank you everybody hanging out with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you guys later.